This is Moscow. Airport floors have been emergency beds for a week. ATMs are down, card payments are being rejected everywhere, and air defense sirens sound every few hours like a broken alarm that no one can turn off. People do not know if they can still fly tomorrow, or even open their phones. What is clear is this: the war that was said to be far away is now sitting comfortably in the departure lounge, sleeping on concrete, waiting for news that never comes. Vnukovo Airport now looks more like a refugee camp than the gateway to the capital. All flights are canceled. It is not only Vnukovo. A total of 15 airports across Russia are paralyzed at the same time. More than 500 flights are delayed, many canceled with no clarity. 60,000 people are stuck in terminals. Some have been waiting for 16 hours. There is no food, no water, no staff giving information. They said blankets and beds were handed out, but the videos show people sleeping on cold floors, curled up in jackets, children crying, the elderly leaning against suitcases. One passenger shouted to the camera, "No one comes. No one says anything. Everyone is just sleeping." And it is not one or two people. It is thousands. This did not happen in one day. Since the 3rd of May, Moscow's airspace has been under continuous assault. Delays pile up, cancellations increase, and passengers grow more desperate each day. The Moscow Metro, which usually carries 8 million people daily, is now quiet like an abandoned station. Internet cuts in and out. Payment apps are failing. At mini-market counters, people swipe cards over and over only to be rejected. On the streets, Muscovites are starting to hear a sound they never imagined hearing in the city center: the hum of drones, then the blast of air defenses. Each explosion chips away at one promise that has been sold to the people for years. Moscow is safe. Your life will not be disrupted. Why did it get to this point? The answer goes back to one date: the 9th of May, Victory Day. For the Kremlin, this is the most important stage of the year. Parades, tanks, missiles, fighter jets, all to show Russia is still strong. Putin needs that moment. He needs a victory narrative before the 9th of May. That is why he rejected Ukraine's ceasefire offer. He decided to go all in. Thousands of drones, hundreds of ballistic missiles, all directed to crush Kyiv as fast as possible. The hope was that Kyiv would fall, and he could speak in Red Square with a wide smile. But Kyiv did not fall. Ukraine was not afraid. They waited and they hit back, fast and hard. On the night of the 7th of May, year 2026, hours after Zelensky's speech, the Russian sky changed. Ukraine launched one of the largest air operations into Russian territory since the war began. Around 700 drones. Not at one point. More than 20 regions were hit in one night. The goal was clear: paralyze the system, and Moscow was one of the main targets. Mayor Sergei Sobyanin went on television and said 74 drones heading to the capital were intercepted. It sounded like a victory, but if everything was intercepted, why are 15 airports closed? Why are 60,000 people sleeping on floors? Reality on the ground does not match the story of "we stopped them," because what fell was not only drones. What fell was trust. Trust that the government can keep the capital running normally. Ukraine did not stop at Moscow. The next night, the 8th of May, it was Sochi's turn. Sochi International Airport shut down completely. More than 70 flights delayed. The terminal packed again, the same scene as Moscow. But Sochi was not only about the airport. Fuel depots in the port area burned intensely. The smoke was visible from the city center. At almost the same time, Arshida railway station in the Volgograd region was also hit. That is one of the main lines carrying military logistics to the southern front. Russia's transport ministry finally admitted that the air navigation building in Rostov-on-Don was hit by a UAV. The effect was immediate. 13 airports from Astrakhan, Volgograd, Grozny, Krasnodar to Makhachkala suspended operations. 2 nights, 2 waves, and Russia's air transport network from Moscow to the Caucasus collapsed. This was not a random attack. This was a systematic dismantling. Look at the data from the past week. The Sochi depot that burned is part of the fuel supply chain for 60,000 Russian soldiers in Crimea and units on the southern front. Earlier, the Tuapse refinery had already been crippled after being hit 4 times through the end of April. The depot in Feodosia was struck. Shadow Fleet tankers were sunk. Now Sochi is burning too. Russia's southern energy corridor is like a highway with its bridges taken down one by one. Go back 2 days to the 5th of May. Ukraine's Flamingo missiles hit the Vineyard Progress facility in Cheboksary. That factory makes the navigation brains for Shahed drones and Iskander missiles. In the same week, the Kirishi refinery was also hit. That is one of the 3 largest refineries in Russia. So in 1 week, the weapons production chain is cut, refinery capacity drops, the southern fuel corridor collapses, logistics to the front line are stalled, and the capital's air network is dead. This is not coincidence. This is a campaign. Ukraine is targeting each gear in Russia's war machine, one by one, to slow the entire engine. And the timing hits perfectly. The 9th of May, a day that should be a stage of national pride. This year, for the first time in the Putin era, there are no missiles, no tanks, no armored vehicles in the parade. The Defense Ministry said the reason is the operational situation. Everyone understands what that means. The drone threat. To secure the parade, mobile internet across all of Moscow was shut down completely on the 9th of May. The week before was already full of severe disruptions. The reason? Drones can use cell signals for navigation. Rather than take the risk, shut it all down. Imagine, the capital of the country with the most nuclear warheads in the world shuts down its own internet because it is afraid of drones. The paranoia does not stop there. A Pantsir S-1 system was placed on the roof of the Defense Ministry building. A move usually taken only in active war zones is now happening in the heart of Moscow. Access to Red Square is closed. Anti-drone systems are installed on every corner. The parade that should show strength ended up as an empty stage. Only marching soldiers and jets leaving smoke trails. Where are the tanks? Where are the missiles? What remains are questions. There is one detail that shows how panicked the Kremlin is. A Ukrainian source said through unofficial channels, the Russian side offered a prisoner exchange ahead of the 9th of May, if Ukraine would guarantee not to attack the Red Square parade. Think about it. A country with thousands of nuclear warheads is now bargaining to keep its parade safe. Zelensky fired back sharply. Even their main parade now depends on us. That sentence cuts deep, because it is true. So why can Russia, with all its S-300s, S-400s, and Pantsirs, not stop 700 drones? The answer is simple. The blanket is not long enough. Russia's air defense systems are limited in number, but they must cover 3 areas at once. First, a front line more than 1,000 kilometers long. Second, major cities, especially Moscow. Third, industrial and energy infrastructure like refineries and depots. If everything is pulled to Moscow, the front line is exposed. Ukrainian drones and missiles come through, and units at the front are unprotected. If they stay at the front, Moscow gets hit, buildings are struck, airports close, 60,000 people are stranded. If the focus is on protecting refineries, the capital and the front are left vulnerable. Ukraine understands this dilemma. That is why they use a saturation strategy. Send 700 targets in one night. Overwhelm the defense system. Every drone shot down costs a missile. Every missile used reduces capacity to stop the next wave, and Ukraine keeps sending wave after wave. The result is visible. A Pantsir sits on the roof of the Defense Ministry. Drones reach expensive districts in Moscow, and the country with the largest nuclear force cannot keep 15 airports open. Putin could produce more systems, but the factories are already targets. Cheboksary was hit. Kirishi was hit. Tuapse was hit. Russia cannot cover all the holes, and it cannot make a new blanket fast enough. The world is watching. Russia's allies are watching. China sees its partner unable to keep its own airports open for 20 hours. Refineries from Tuapse to Kirishi are burning. The weapons production chain in Cheboksary is broken. Depots in Sochi are ash. For Beijing, a weak Russia makes China the dominant partner in the alliance. But being dominant on a leaking ship is not a comfortable position. Iran is even more troubled. The factory in Cheboksary that makes the navigation brains for Shahed drones is critical for them. If Russia cannot protect its own weapons factories, how can it help Iran? A question is slowly forming in the minds of allies. If it cannot even protect its own capital, how will it protect us? And each new drone attack makes that question louder. While the Kremlin loses face abroad, people at home are feeling it directly. Attacks on refineries are cutting fuel production. Gas prices are rising. Power outages are no longer only in villages, but in major city centers. Water is often cut too. But the worst mess is digital. To suppress opposition, Putin accelerated internet censorship. Western platforms have been blocked for a long time. Now 80% of Telegram is blocked, and there are plans to shut it down completely. The problem is, Russian soldiers on the front line actually use Telegram to coordinate because their military radios are outdated. The state made a rule to silence its own people, but it ended up making its own soldiers blind and deaf on the battlefield. Even pro-government bloggers are angry. Shutting down the army's main communication tool in the middle of a war is foolish. As a replacement, people are forced to use a domestic messaging app called Max. This is not just an app. To access education services, to register with a doctor, you must use Max. Refuse to use it? Your healthcare access can be complicated. In year 2017, Putin once said, "We will not follow China on internet censorship." Now, Russia has gone even further than China, and the ones paying the highest price are civilians in border regions. In Kursk, residents took to the streets to demand compensation that was promised but never came. Moscow instead labeled them voluntary migrants and stopped all aid. No official came to visit. In the end, residents made a video protesting to the governor. A regime that so easily abandons its own people, victims of a war it started, is proof that the social contract between the state and the people is torn. Digital censorship is not enough to hide the unrest in Kursk or the broken economy. The reality at the front line cannot be hidden forever either. Russian military bloggers can no longer cover up the casualty numbers because the figures are too large. The latest reports from their own channels say the average lifespan of a Russian assault is only 12 days. They write that Ukraine can launch 500 FPV drones at once and wipe out every Russian unit moving up to 20 kilometers deep. They call the front line a Siberian slaughterhouse, and the heaviest sentence comes from their own ranks. It increasingly feels like Russia cannot win this war because the current leadership cannot adapt to the reality of the conflict. Those words come from war correspondents who are on the ground with the Russian army. They also admit that the Ukrainian territories supposedly liberated at great cost have now become hell that cannot be reversed, just like Russia itself. Putin wanted to end this war before the 9th of May. He rejected a ceasefire. He threw everything he had at Kyiv. What did he get in return? A capital with collapsed airports, tens of thousands of people sleeping on terminal floors, fuel depots on fire, a victory day without tanks for the first time in 20 years, and a Kremlin offering prisoner swaps to secure a parade. He wanted to stop the war. The war came to the streets of Moscow. There is no place that is truly safe anymore. The wind has now changed direction. And if you think this is the peak, wait. Because what Ukraine hit is not only buildings or airports. What it hit is an illusion. The illusion that war can be localized. The illusion that people can watch war on television while living normally. The illusion that sanctions do not matter, that the economy is fine, that the 9th of May parade will always be grand. All those illusions cracked along with the glass at Vnukovo terminal. The Moscow Times wrote it clearly. The war has come home. Ukraine's drones are no longer only looking for military targets. They are looking for psychological targets. They attack the sense of safety. They chip away at trust. Because Putin's power is not only built on fear, it is built on comfort. The Russian people accepted this war as long as it did not touch their electricity bills, as long as it did not make gas scarce, as long as it did not make their children sleep on airport floors. Once that contract is broken, fixing it is nearly impossible. And this is not over. While you are watching this video, the refinery that burned last week is still smoking. The railway line that was hit is still being repaired. Airports are slowly reopening, but schedules are still a mess. And above Moscow, every night, air defense operators are still staring at radar, waiting for the next wave. Because they know the 700 drones yesterday were not the last attack. They were only a notice. So what do you think? Is this the turning point? Or is this only the first act? Write your thoughts in the comments. If you like geopolitical breakdowns like this that do not show up in regular news, subscribe and turn on the bell. Because here we unpack what is really happening behind the scenes. Thank you for watching until the end. If you want to listen to analysis like this while driving or resting, check out our Spotify too. The link is in the description. See you in the next video.